You're watching Voices in Mystery, and I'm your host, Nancy Carlson. With me now is Gwen Mayo from Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome.
Thank you.
This is your first appearance on the show.
Yes, it is.
You have a book, Circle of Dishonor, that's out on the bookshelves right now.
Yes, it is.
And tell us about your protagonist and what it's all about, and then only stop when you're going to ruin the plot. So just set it up for us.
Well, Circle of Dishonor, the protagonist is a former Pinkerton agent who was posing as a Civil War nurse in order to collect information from the troops in the hospital, and her brother was posing as an Army payroll officer because there was a series of payroll robberies during the Civil War by the Knights of the Golden Circle, and he was trying to become part of this group. Toward the end of the war, he got killed, and to find the people in the Knights of the Golden Circle that had murdered him, she posed as him because in 1870 or in the 1860s and 70s, women couldn't really travel alone in Kentucky. Hotels would not check you in if you were a woman traveling alone because they assume you're a prostitute. You couldn't ride the trains for the same reason. So either you had a chaperone or you were a man if you were going to travel. So she takes on his identity, and it's been 14 years, and she's developed a career as a detective during that time, posing as her brother, but she hasn't been able to find the particular people who had killed him. The book opens with a murder that's in a very popular downtown brothel in 1879, and one of the elite members of the tobacco industry has been found murdered and naked in the front hallway of this brothel. And a young prostitute by the name of Belle Breezing is a friend of Nessa's, and she comes to find her and ask her if she'll help keep her from being hanged from this. And in the process of investigating it, she runs back into the people who had murdered her brother and gets pulled into a major plot that's happening again in this post-war era. And toward the end of the book, it's questionable whether they're going to survive or if they're going to be able to stop the plot. And
wow. Now, when Nessa is posing as a man for 14 years, did she do that 24/7, or did she go home, put on a dress, and be a woman at the end of the day? How did that work?
No, it was 24/7, and there are only a couple of people in town who know who she is. One is this young prostitute who saved her life and in the process of stitching her up discovered it. And the other is a friend of hers that became her housekeeper. She takes care of her and helped her actually cut her hair and start posing and learning to walk as a man. And
That'd be fun to write about.
I actually have done some short stories with the two characters, and you get to see a bit of this interplay between them when the African-American woman who is her housekeeper was the cook for the hospital when she was in the Civil War, and kind of takes on the mother role.
Now, the secret society that you have in your book, is it real, or is it a send-up of, say, other very famous secret societies such as the Masonic Lodge?
Actually, it's the Knights of the Golden Circle. It was a very real society, and they were Southern sympathizers. They were a Copperhead organization that was funneling money to the South to support the war effort. And during the height of the Civil War, there were about 400,000 members in Kentucky. Wow. Now, when you consider that the population of the state was 2 million, this means that basically the estimate is that 80% of the white males in Kentucky were members of this group.
Did the group have anything to do with what later was called the Ku Klux Klan, or is it unrelated?
Some of them did, but it was an unrelated organization. What happened with the Klan is a lot of the people who came home and everything was in chaos, and Kentucky was particularly prone to that. They either, if they were Northern people, they became part of the Regulators. If they were Southern sympathizers, they became part of the Klan.
Now, how do you get your knowledge about the Civil War? Are you a history teacher, or what is your background?
Actually, I majored in politics and Kentucky history. So I got a lot of it when I was learning there, but my real interest in it is I'm a history junkie. I started reading, I broke down and cried when the Kentucky Room flooded our library because all of that history got shipped to Chicago to be restored and shipped back to us. So for about 2 years, I didn't have, my daily fix.
Now, when I think Lexington, I think UK, the university, I think horses. Do either of those play any part in to any of your writing?
Well, it doesn't come up a lot in this book, but at the time, the University of Kentucky was fairly new. It was the Agricultural and Mechanical College. And in the sequel to this book, there's going to be a lot about UK because one of the professors there is a suspect in the case.
That sounds good. Do you teach there, or?
No, actually, I do work for the university, but I'm generally referred to as Dr. Hayden's keeper. I have a very brilliant physician who desperately needs someone to take care of him.
Oh, that's interesting. When do you write then?
Most of my writing is done on Saturday mornings. Now, I do a lot of research during the week, but I actually sit down for about a 4-hour block on Saturday morning and write.
Now, you indicated there's another book, so have you finished that and sent that off to the publisher? Where is that book number 2?
I'm about 35,000 words into it.
Whoa.
So right about the midpoint. Things are getting very interesting.
You're interested in your own stories. That's a good sign.
Oh, I love it. And I have a lot of friends who are like, harassing me about when the next chapter is going to be finished.
Do you participate in a writers group or anything that helps you vent or vet, either one of those?
Actually, the Ohio River Valley chapter of Sisters in Crime is the writing group that I go to every month. Next month, they've actually canceled the meeting because I'll be at the Kentucky Book Fair the day of it, and they're all going to come out and support me. But
oh, that feels good. So they're sisters? They're mostly women?
Actually, no. It's about 20% men.
Is that right?
Yeah, there are misters and the sisters, and they have several of those who also write, and we kind of critique each other's work. And when you have a strong group of writers who critique, it's a very good experience for writers.
Do you write very fast, one take, and then review it, or do you edit yourself as you go?
I write beginning to end and then go back and do my edits. It is very rare for me to jump into the middle of anything or work on a scene that's out of sequence. And when I go back and I do the edits, then I go in and correct anything that when I read through it didn't work.
Well, thank you so much for being on our show. I want to talk about the name of the book one more time, Circle of Dishonor, by Gwen Mayo, our first-time visitor to Voices in Mystery. Thanks for being on, and I hope to see you next year.
Well, thank you.
Thank
it was
you,
a pleasure.
Gwen.